Can we really consider Queen Vashti in the book of Esther as an icon for women empowerment? Now, join me in the book of Esther as we unearth characteristics of three women. First, we meet Queen Vashti, who overt disobedience to King Xerxes led to grave consequences, one that she would never recover from. Now we meet Queen Esther, or Hail the Queen, who used her shrewdness, her wisdom, selflessness, and obedience to her guardian Mordecai to help save her people. Additionally, we meet Haman's wife, Zarich, a very crafty character who used her crafty wisdom to scroll her home with her own hands and bring the downfall of her husband Haman. Hello, people. Welcome to Women with the Armor of God Bible Study Series, where we explore stories of women in the Bible and to find out what lessons can we learn from their stories and vice versa, and how those lessons can draw us closer or deepen our relationship with God. While we are at it, kindly like, comment, and subscribe. Your ideas I valued in the comment section. Thank you. We are in Esther chapter 1. This is what happened during the time of Xerxes. The Xerxes who ruled over 27 provinces, stretching from India to Kush. At that time, King Xerxes resigned from his royal throne in the citadel of Susa. In the 10th year of his reign, he gave a banquet for all his nobles and officials, the military leaders of Persia and Media, the princes and the noble of the province were present. For 480 days, he displays vast wealth of his kingdom and the splendor of glory of his majesty. When these days were over, the king gave a banquet lasting 7 days in the enclosed garden of the king's palace, for all the people from the least to the greatest who were in the citadel of Susa. The garden had hangings of white and blue linen, fastening of cords and white linen, and purple material of silver rings on marble pillars. There were couches of gold and silver on a mosaic pavement of porphyry, marble, mother of pearl, and other costly stones. Wine was served in goblets of gold, each one different from the other, and the royal wine was in abundance, in keeping with the king's liberality. But the king's command, each guest was allowed to drink with no restriction, for the king's instructed that the wine steward to serve each man as he wished. Queen Vashti also gave a banquet for the women in the royal palace of King Xerxes. On the 7th day, when King Xerxes was in high spirits from the wine, he commanded 7 eunuchs who served him: Nehuman, Basta, Habona, Bacta, Abita, Zikta, and Kakas, to bring before him Queen Vashti, wearing her royal crown in order to display her beauty to the people and nobles. For she was lovely to look at. But when the attendants delivered the king's command, Queen Vashti refused to come. Then the king became furious and burned with anger. Since this was customary for the king to consult experts in the matters of laws and justice, he spoke with wise men who understood the time and were the closest to the king. So, according to the law, what must be done to Queen Vashti? He asked. she has not obeyed the command of King Xerxes, and the eunuch have taken to her. Then Memucan replied in the presence of the king and the nobles, Queen Vashti has done wrong not only against the king, but also against all the nobles and the people of all province of King Xerxes. For the queen's conduct will become known to all women, so they will despise their husband and say, King Xerxes commanded Queen Vashti to be brought to him, but she would not come. This very day, the Persians and the Median women of nobility will have heard about the queen's conduct will respond to all king's noble in the same way. There will be no end of disrespect and discord. Therefore, if it pleases the king, let him issue a royal decree, and let it be written in the laws of Persia and Media, which cannot be repealed, that Vashti is never again to enter the presence of King Xerxes. Also, let the king give her royal position to someone else who is better than she. Then, when the king edict is proclaimed throughout the vast reign of women, will respect their husband from least to greatest. The king and his nobles were pleased with this advice, so the king did as Memucan proposed. He sent dispatches to all parts of the kingdom, to each province in its own script, and to each people in their own language, proclaim that every man should be ruler of his own household using his native tongue. Amen. Our Lord Jesus, we welcome you here. We pray for your wisdom, your knowledge, and your understanding. In Jesus' name. Go. The story begins with King Xerxes, who was the ruler of 127 provinces, and for 480 days, it was told that he displayed vast wealth of his kingdom and splendor of his glory and majesty. So on the seventh day, he invited from the least to the greatest to drink. There was a lot of wine in gold goblets. Everybody was drinking with no restriction, and it was told that everybody was drinking according to even the king's will and pleasure. And on the seventh day, and that party ran for 7 days. And on the seventh day, he decided, he was in very high spirit, to call the eunuch to invite Queen Vashti to come and display her beauty in front of all the nobles and wear her royal crown. Queen Vashti, being Queen Vashti, I saw this as an ethical issue. No, I'm not going to go and display myself in front of all those men that is so drunk, that have been drinking for X amount of days. All right. And she said no. Now, they reported to the king became very furious, and he decided to take an action. He invited those wise men. Okay, this is what happened. Queen Vashti have refused to obey my instruction when I sent for her to display her crime in front of all the nobles. What can be done? So there was a man named Memucan who said, Queen Vashti have not only disobeyed you, my king, but that she is the model of all the women in this kingdom. What is going to happen is that other women will see this and begin to take after this action to disrespect their husband. So what is going to be done is that we can find a person who is better than Queen Vashti to act in her position, and they begin to search in what maybe in present day can be termed as a beauty pageant. So in chapter 2, Esther made queen. They said later, when King Xerxes fury had subsided, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what he had decreed about her. Then the king's personal attendant proposed, "Let us make a search for beautiful young virgins for the king. Let the king appoint commissioners in every province of his realm to bring all these beautiful women to the harem of the citadel of the king." So where all the women would be is in the king's harem now. "So let them be placed under the head of the king eunuch." So eunuch is termed as castrated men who were in charge of the king's wife or concubines, who is in the king's harem. All right. So then, let them be placed under the care of the Hagi, the king's eunuch, who is in charge of these women, and let beauty treatment be given to them. Then let the women who pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti. So they are looking for Vashti replacement since after her disobedience to the king. May we never be replaced, especially in area of our high position. And then this advice appealed to the kings, and he followed it. Now there was in the citadel of Susa or Jews of the tribe of Benjamin named Mordecai. So this is where Mordecai and Esther came in. Mordecai had a cousin named Hadassah, whom he brought up because she had neither a father nor mother, a young woman who also known as Esther. Now, Esther also participated in this search for the king's idea from the wise men to replace Queen Vashti. Esther participated in sort of like beauty pageant, like what we can term as present day beauty pageant. And now Mordecai is there under who is a guardian to Esther. Her name was Hadassah. She adopted the name Esther. The young woman who was also known as Esther had lovely figure and was beautiful. Mordecai has taken her as his own daughter when her father and mother died. Was told, according to the story, that she was an orphan. When the king ordered the edict, edict is like a proclamation or written proclamation, the king's order of somebody who in greater authority, who that is going to be followed by all other people in the kingdom. So Esther was taken to the king's palace and entrusted to the Haggai, who had charge in the harem. She pleases him and won his favor. Now, this is something that I had to ponder over for a while. Esther was so shrewd that her shrewdness even showed that we are told that at the first encounter of Esther bed in the palace, so to speak, waiting for this beauty treatment so that she can have her one night with the king and subsequently be chosen as the queen, that she managed to please this eunuch who is in charge of her beauty treatment, who provided her with beauty treatment and special food. And this made him to provide her with beauty treatment among all other contestants, provide her with this special food and special beauty treatment. He assigned to her several female attendants selected from the king palace and moved her and her attendants into the best place in the harem. So I don't know if Queen Vashti also had that same kind of treatment or also managed to gain favor. We are not told much about Queen Vashti, like except one encounter where she refused to obey the king, and due to her disobedience, we saw what happened to her. But it seems to be that Esther was somebody who could get along with other people, who studied other people, and was very shrewd to the behavior of other people, and managed them to favor her. That she was accorded a very special treatment, and even taken to a special place where she was favored. And we are told that Esther had not revealed her nationality, like essentially that she was a Jew, because Mordecai told her not to do so. Every day it was told that Mordecai could monitor what was happening during the time that Esther was in this harem. Before the young women came to go into King Xerxes, she had to complete 12 months of beauty treatment prescribed for the women, 6 months with oil of myrrh and 6 months with perfumes and cosmetics. And this is how she goes to the king. Everything she wanted was given to her to take with her from the harem to the palace. In the evening, she would go there, and in the morning return to another part of the harem to take care of Sazar, the king's eunuch, who was in charge of the concubines. She would not return unless he was pleased with her and summoned her by name. When the turn came for Esther, the young woman Mordecai had adopted, we are told to go to the king. She asked for nothing. So it was like, okay, you can go. It was by the will and pleasure of all the other ladies. You can go. You can even take additional stuff with you if you go into the king to have your night with the king. But it was told that Esther took nothing with her, only what the king eunuch, who was in charge of the harem, suggested. So Esther was somebody who could listen to advice, who could listen to suggestion, who was in a competition for the long-term game. So, and Esther won the favor of everyone who saw her. She was taken to King Xerxes in the royal residence in the 10th month, and on the 7th year of his reign. Now the king was attracted to Esther more than any other women, and she won the favor and approval more than any other virgins. So he set a royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. So we are told there's some attribute of Esther who won the favor of the people, especially those that matters around her. So I think while even studying the story of Esther, we can ask ourselves, who are those around her? What can we do in our own weak way to be so shrewd that we can also win their favor around us if we study the characteristics of Esther? So he set a royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. And the king gave a great banquet, Esther banquet of all his nobles and officials. He proclaimed a holiday through the providence and distributed gifts with royal liberality. Wow. We are not told whether this scene was done for Queen Vashti. However, the Bible tells us that when Esther got approved and the king was attracted to her, there was a huge banquet, and the king shared gifts with no restrictions, and he was very pleased. Now, during this time of this banquet, we are told that Mordecai uncovered a conspiracy by the king's subordinate. They was planning, in verse 19, they were planning to assassinate the king. And then, but Mordecai found out of the plot and told Queen Esther, who in turn reported to the king, giving credit to Mordecai. So Esther, Esther was selfless and she was very truthful. She didn't even take the credit, say, oh, maybe I heard this. She made sure the credit was given to Mordecai. And when it was reported and investigated, it was found that it was true that 2 officials were implied on the polls. And this was recorded in the book. So now in verse 3, we discover Haman. Then we found out that when Haman saw that Mordecai could not kneel down or even pay him the honor that he so wanted, he was enraged. Yet having to learn who Mordecai's people are, he saw the idea of killing only Mordecai. Instead, Haman looked for a way to destroy all Mordecai people, the Jew, throughout the whole kingdom of Xerxes. Now, they say Haman went to the king. Then Haman said to King Xerxes, there are certain people who among us in all of the province who do not keep to certain law or separate themselves. Their customs are different from those all other people, and they do not obey the king's law. Then he said to the king, if it please the king, let a decree be issued to destroy him, and I will give 10,000 talents of silver and the king administrators for of silver to the king's administrators for the royal treasury. So the king took his signet, his ring, from his finger and gave it to Haman, son Haman. He said that keep the money. And the king said to Haman, so do with the people as you please. So we are told that, okay, Haman went to go and complain Mordecai's behavior. Say, this is what happened. We have certain group of people here who do not obey the king's order. If it pleases you, let me do with them what I want to do with them. I will give money or whatever it is to the king's administrator. And then the king said, well, you can keep it. The king do with them whatever you please. And the king used his ring to seal it. Then on the 13th day of the first month, the royal secretary were summoned. They wrote it out in a script of each province in its own language. And this was written in the name of King Xerxes himself and sealed with his own ring. And we are told that it was dispatched. They say a copy of the text of the edict was to be issued as law in every province to make known to the people of every nationality so that they would be ready for that day. All right. They say when Mordecai learned of all of this happening, what he went, he tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes and went out into the city, walking loudly and bitterly. So Mordecai this story, another thing we can learn from here is that even if you are walking in a way of or doing what it is that God tells you to do, it doesn't guarantee you that you will not face trials or tribulations, because Mordecai choosing not to obey Haman's law to bow down to him, he as a Jew saw this as a form of idolatry, and then he still encountered this problem. So we are told that as Christians, trials and tribulation will come, but how do we handle it? And then we are also told that he showed emotion. You know, he was bitter and he showed it. They say in every province, the edict and order the king, there was a great mourning among the Jews, and fasting, weeping, and wailing. Many lay in sackcloth and ashes. They say when Esther heard of this, when Esther eunuch and the female attendant came and told her. So Now, Esther, it had to be the eunuch female attendant who delivered this message to Esther and say, look what happening among your people. So it also tells us that we are to keep relationship with even our subordinate people who we are above. How our relationship with those people, we are to keep cordial relationship with them, because it might be that even if you have somebody that you above in place of order, and then they hear something, they are not able to tell you, they hear something bad about you, they are not able to tell you, they are afraid to tell you, or they let you be because you don't have that kind of good rapport or good kind of good standing relationship with them. But we are told that Esther had relationship with her eunuch. They said when Esther eunuch and female attendant came and told her about Mordecai, she was in great distress. She sent clothes for him, but instead he refused. But he said he could not keep it. Then Esther summoned Hatank, one of the king eunuch, assigned to attend to her in order to find out what was troubling Mordecai and why. So Mordecai told him everything that had happened, including the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay into the royal treasury for the destruction of the Jews. Now, there's an attempt genocide. So he also gave him a couple of texts of the edit for their destruction, which had been published in the Susa to show Esther and explain to her, and he told him to instruct her to go into the king's presence to beg for mercy and to plead with him for her people. All right. Then it was so that they reported the message as Mordecai said. Then she instructed him to say to Mordecai, all the king's officials and the people of the royal province known for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned. The king has but one law, that they be put to death unless the king extend the gold scepter to them to spare their lives. But 30 days have passed since I was called to go to the king. When Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, he sent back to her. So Esther said, Mordecai, you are my guardian, you are my parent. However, if the king has not summoned me to go in his presence, and I go there, it will be a trouble. If the king do not extend his gold scepter to me, it will cost me my life. Instead, Mordecai sent back to Esther and said, do not think that because you are in the king's house, you are alone. You alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent in this time, relief and deliverance of the Jew will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows that you have come into the royal position for such a time like this? This is a food for thought. Where are we placed for such a time and position that we are to obey God's word, we are to obey God's instruction, we are to carry on our God's desire for us, and to help other people to be saved? They say when Esther replied to Mordecai, go gather all the Jews in the Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my attendant will also do the same. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it it is against the law. If I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went away and carried out all of Esther's instruction. So Esther, we are told that Esther didn't rely on her own strength. When this happened, she decided to, okay, Mordecai reminded her. I think as people in our day-to-day lives, we have to be reminded. We have to have somebody like Mordecai in our life to remind us where we have come from. And Esther took a decision. She said, okay, go and fast. You alone with the other people, go and fast, and I will fast with my people. She even managed to talk to her people that they can join, even though they were not Jews, they were in the harem, they were not Jews. She managed to convince them, this is that my people are going through distress, that there is a genocide about to go on, that can you join me to fast. She didn't depend on her own strength. She seeked to a higher power, God. She said, let us fast, and I will go there. When I perish, I perished. So Esther requested the king, and then when we are told, I will go to the king. When I perish, I perish. So when Mordecai went away and carried out all of Esther's instruction. So, and we are told that on the third day, Esther put on her royal robe and stood in the inner courts in the palace in front of the king's hall. And the king was sitting on his royal throne at the hall, facing the entrance. When he saw Esther standing in the court, he was pleased with her and held her with the gold scepter that was in his hand. So Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. Tell me if it was not divinely orchestrated. Esther, on the third day, decided to wear this royal robe. She didn't even, Esther was very wise. She didn't say, oh yeah, now that I have all the divine power, I'm just going to walk in front of the king. Yeah, now that we are fasted, I'm going to walk and give and plead to the king on behalf of my people. No, she decided as well to follow all giving protocol. She went as it was divinely orchestrated, stood up, and with the divine power, the king saw her and extended his golden scepter. So then the king asked, what it is, Queen Esther? What is your request? Even up to the half of the kingdom I will give to you. If it please the king, she replied, let the king together with Haman come today to a banquet I have prepared for him. Bring Haman at once, the king said. All right. So she didn't give her a request. She read the room, she didn't give her a request, but instead bring Haman, if it please you, so that I can throw a banquet. And only Haman and the prince and the king was allowed to go there. Then Esther replied, my petition and my request is, if the king regard me with favor, and it please the king to grant my petition to be for petition and fulfill my request, let the king and Haman come tomorrow to the banquet I prepare for them. Then I will answer all the questions. Now Haman raged against Mordecai. Right after this, okay, the king said, bring Haman. Haman is still mad that Mordecai do not bow to him. Haman went that day. He went, but Haman went out that day, and he was in high spirit. Now, yes, only the king, only me and the king is going to attend this special banquet that the queen is about to throw. But when he saw Mordecai at the king gate, and he observed that he neither rose nor showed him fear in his presence, he was filled with rage against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman restrained himself and went home. So when he went home, he called together his wife, Zeresh, I hope I get the name correct, and Haman boasted to them with his vast wealth, along with his son, and all the ways the king had honored him, and how he had been elevated above all other nobles and officials. And that not at all, Haman added, "I'm the only person who Esther had invited to accompany the king to the banquet she gave. And she had invited me along with the king tomorrow. But all of this do not give me satisfaction as long as I see that that Jew Mordecai is still sitting at the king's gate." So it just tell us how sometimes they have people that cannot be content. Sometimes you cannot even hold yourself. You cannot even restrain yourself from your ungodly desires, your not being able to be content in this situation. Imagine Haman have been he is the only person that Queen Esther has invited along with the king among all other nobles to this banquet. He's not still satisfied. He still wants more. He still wants more respect. He went to his wife. I mean, all this have happened. I have vast wealth. I have been promoted, but yet I'm not still satisfied because Mordecai cannot obey me or respect me the way I want to be respected. Now, his wife Zeresh and all his friends said to him, his wife came in, "Have a pole set up reaching to the highest and filthy, highest of 50 cubits, and ask the king in the morning to have Mordecai impart on it. Then go to the king's banquet and enjoy yourself." This suggestion delighted Haman. This woman was very crafty, and she had wisdom, but that wisdom we are told that is not from God, because in James chapter 3 verse 14 tells us that a wisdom that seeks after selfishly lust and ungodly desire is not from God. There are two types of wisdom. So, and this is a woman that your husband has just been promoted. You are told that your husband has vast wealth now, that he has been promoted, and he's even invited to a banquet where he is the only man among all other nobles, along with the king, is going, that the queen have shown for him. But you instead you gave your husband advice to put Mordecai on this pole. Who does that? What kind of woman? So, but also Proverbs 14 tells us that a wise woman build her house, but with her own hands the foolish one tears it down. That's what Haman's wife is. She's a foolish woman. A wise woman build her home, but the foolish one look at her home and tells and ripped and bring down her home. So Mordecai is an honor. Now, with all of this going on, Haman plans to take down the Jews. Mordecai, the king, remember Mordecai, the king is sitting down at night. The king could not sleep. You know, we're talking about divine orchestrated happenings here. The king thought, what honor and recognition have Mordecai received, saying he saved my life, saying he unearthed this assassination plan that my servant was about to do. Then the king said, "Who is in the court?" Now Haman entered the altar gate of the palace to speak to the king about employing Mordecai on the pole. Now then the king said, then bring him. The king ordered. Now Haman went there to talk to Mordecai. Now the king said, let Haman enter. The king asked, "What should be done to the man the king delights on?" We are told in verse 7 that Haman and the king went for Esther banquet, and the king asked Queen Esther what it is, what is your request, and what is your petition. And Esther said to the king, if it found favor in your eyes, and if pleases you, let me and my people live and be set free. Then King Xerxes asked Queen Esther, we are about to be killed. King Xerxes asked Queen Esther, who is he? Where is he, the man who has dared to do such thing to kill you and your people? And Esther said, an adversary, the enemy, this vile Haman. Wow. Haman owned destruction for the Jews turned around on him. Then it said, Haman was terrified before the king and queen, and he got up in rage. The king got up in rage, left his wine, and went into the palace garden. But Haman, realizing that the king had already decided his fate, stayed behind to beg Queen Esther for his life. Just as the king returned from the palace garden to the banquet hall, Haman was falling on the couch where Esther was. So the king exclaimed, well, he even molests the queen while she is in the house. Where he even molests the queen while he is in the house. That's what the king said. So, Haman's lust, Haman's utter lust for power, for respect, for his arrogance and everything led to his downfall. And while we study women in the Bible, I think his wife contributed immensely to this, to his downfall. And we are told during the rest of the story, even Esther requested that his sons be imparted to on the poor. Imagine you giving your husband such a wrong advice that it even lead to the death of your children. We are told that Haman's 10 sons, and we are also told that Mordecai was excelled in the position of Haman's second in command to the king. So the text here doesn't really put Queen Vashti in a situation or display her as a villain. Cut that back. The text doesn't. Cut it. So, in my own understanding, the text doesn't portray Vashti as a villain. However, it doesn't portray her as a hero either, because Esther respected protocol. Esther empowered herself and that of her people. And what good is a hero who cannot get a job done and cannot empower herself and cannot empower her people as well? And then another thing take away here is that I think we all need Mordecai in our lives, that someone who is able to speak to our heart. I was listening to one of Duncan Williams' commentary. He said that Mordecai spoke to the heart of Esther and not to the head, able to remind us where we have come from. And every time when we come to the place of influence, so to remind us about our assignment as well as our mandate. People who can look us in the eye and speak to our heart with grace. Because Ephesians 4 verse 15 tell us that speak with love as well as grace. And I think that's what Mordecai represented in Esther's life. So thank you very much for being present here in our today's Bible study for Women in the Bible weekly series. I hope this passage through God speak to our hearts and to our minds. Bye.